Hey everybody, it's Niclas Huschenbeth and this is my analysis from the Millionaire Chess Tournament against Grandmaster Varuzhan Akobian, one of the strongest players in the United States. So, before we begin, maybe the background, kind of round number 8, I was just kicked out of the playoffs for the Millionaire Monday, the top 4 players making to Millionaire Monday, and I didn't make it, so I had to return to a normal tournament, and that's round number 8. And well, let's get started. I would say, by the way, I'll just mention it at the end. Okay, let's get started. He played the French and specifically the Rubinstein. Knight takes e4, and it's kind of funny because this is exactly what my opponent played in the last game of the playoffs, so the day before, and I needed a win in that game to proceed or to still have a chance to get into Millionaire Monday, but I just couldn't break the Rubinstein, and I lost actually in the end, but just didn't matter. Draw or loss didn't matter. So I don't know if Akobian saw that and want to traumatize me once again with this opening, but he decided to play this. It's a very solid line for black, but white just has a long-term advantage. Knight d7, castle, knight gf6, and here white keeps piece on the board, knight g3. General rule of thumb, if you have more space, as it is the case here for white, then keep more pieces on the board. So because if you reverse it, your opponent has less space. That means less space for his piece, and the piece might be like in the way. So that's the general idea. And here the usual moves are bishop e7, bishop d6. My opponent the day before, Hernandez, he played bishop e7, and then usually black gives him the bishop on f3 and just is very solid here with c6. Okay, and white has the bishop here, more space, but it's difficult to break through. But Akobian surprised me by playing g6 here, which I've never seen before, and I doubt it's particularly good. But it was a surprise, and surprise are always kind of helpful. Here I play queen e2. I just followed the standard plan, but afterwards I realized b3 must be the way to go, because it's preventing black from playing bishop g7, because then after bishop a3 he would not be able to castle short side. Black could play something like bishop b4 now, and bishop h6 wouldn't be that great because black can just play knight g4, but instead now after bishop b4 just bishop b2 and g6 looks like a very stupid move now for black if he doesn't put his bishop on g7. So b3 must be the way to go here. Okay, but I missed that. I played a little bit too quickly maybe. Play queen e2, bishop g7. And now I could also just play normally, play c3, rook e1, something like that. But I said, well, if he doesn't take on f3, there must be a point to it. And I played knight e5, attacking a bishop on c6. So he has to take. There's no other really sensible way for black to play. Takes on e5 and take back with the pawn. Now I played knight d7. Maybe knight d5 would be better, but in either case I have a long-term space advantage obviously with my pawn on e5. So here's c4, knight b4, and move my bishop, and it's just more pleasant for white. By the way, queen d5 is possible, but maybe not that great. Just f4, and here after knight g4, h3, queen c5, check, king h1, h5. Looks like black has set up an impressive position, but b4 is quite strong here, trying to deflect the black queen if the queen takes. Now obviously white can take on g4 and go to g1, and it's just up a piece, because queen d4 checks, ends by bishop e3, defending the rook on a1. Alright, but he played knight d7, and I have to play f4. Bishop f4 is no good because of g5, and after knight h5, g takes f4, knight takes g7, king f8, knight h5, queen g5. I think I'm just losing here already. This threat is quite strong. So f4 is forced, which is fine. It's just the only drawback, it's weakening my king a little bit, but it's not too bad. Castle, and here I have many options. I made a mistake right away. I played bishop d2, which made a lot of sense to me, but I missed a strong maneuver for him. I should put something on e4 here, either a bishop or a knight, for example knight e4. I was a little afraid of him opening up the center, but really in the end it's just him having this weakness on e6, and I'm better here, rook e8, bishop e3, and just much more comfortable for white. So my point of bishop d2 was that if he plays f6, now obviously I take on f6 and I can answer immediately with bishop c3, bring the rook to e1. This is just really good for me, but of course he doesn't have to play f6. So he plays knight c5, which I saw, and now bishop c4, and there were some variations to calculate here, and I can show you what I looked at. I looked at b5. Always check the critical variations or the force variations, and b5 is quite critical here. That works out for white after bishop takes b5, bishop takes, queen takes b5. Now his knight is also hanging, which is why he cannot just take on d2. But I also had to look at this check, and then king h1, now rook b8. And here I was looking at bishop c3, but queen a5 is actually also quite possible. But there's one cute line I want to show you, bishop c3, excuse me. And here after queen takes c3, I have queen takes b8, of course. And but now there's queen a5 trapping the white queen. It's kind of funny. But I have b4, and I thought it was kind of cute here. And now black cannot keep everything protected, and he's just going to be an exchange down. Okay, but Akobian didn't have any b5 in mind. He almost right away played knight a4, and that's very strong. The knight was kind of a problem child for black anyway on d7, and now he's putting the knight to better squares, either to go to b6, but right now causing some trouble here on b2. For example, if I was to play b3, the knight would actually jump into b2 and get my bishop on c4, so I couldn't allow that. And it's not easy to defend this pawn, really, so I came up with not b3 but b4. So after knight b2 I could go back to b3, obviously. Right, so here he played a6, which is also a good move, preventing any b5 from me, and also preparing possibly knight b6, and if my bishop moves, then bishop b5. So I moved it away voluntarily already, bishop b3, and now queen d4 check, queen f2, and rook a8, which was the wrong rook, I would say. Rook fd8 had to be played. And it's interesting, after the game he told me he was afraid of bishop e3, queen takes b4, and f5, which I didn't have any idea about that this exists. But really, it doesn't really exist, because black can just take, and there's nothing here. He just saw ghosts, so he said he was too lazy to calculate, but there's nothing here. I can take on f7, but black just plays the king to h8, and it's just nothing there. So he should have played rook fd8, and if I play like I played in the game of queen takes d4, rook takes d4, bishop e3, now he goes back to d8, and knight e2, bishop f8, and of course now we see why the rook is better placed on a8 than on f8, because he can play a5 and open up the a file, possibly put pressure on my pawns here on the queen side, and he is definitely better. So he missed this opportunity. Rook a8, queen takes d4, rook takes, and bishop e3. Very important that I can kick out the rook right away from this active square on d4. He cannot take on b4 because I can play a3, and he doesn't have a square available. He would need to give the exchange if he plays rook b5, of course. This one is hanging on a4. So he played rook d7 back, And now the question was for me which rook to pick to go to d1, and once again it's better to pick the f rook, because this rook on a1 still might be engaged in something going on the queen side. So rook fd1 is the right rook. Now he plays rook fd8, rooks come off, and knight e2 to get my knight back into a game, prevent any knight c3 from happening, as well as possibly jumping to d4. And he goes rook d8 to cope with this threat of knight d4. I actually expect very much knight b6. So after knight d4 he could go bishop d5. But well, the position is pretty much equal. King f2, bishop f8, c3. Not too much going on. Even though honestly I would rather be black, because he can play something like bishop d5 maybe, and try something on the light squares. But objectively speaking, it's equal. Okay, played rook d8 to open up the squares here, so he could answer knight d4 with bishop e8. So I thought, okay, let's bring the king a little closer. King f2, bishop f8, a3, and now he plays a5. Yeah, another consideration of why I played king f2 was that I want to answer knight b6 with c4, so he could not exchange bishops like we just saw earlier with bishop d5. And here it's important that now obviously this bishop on e3 is protected, so it's not a double attack, I'm not losing any material. Alright, so he played a5 and I answered with c4, and actually at this point I was quite happy about my position, but honestly I just overestimated my chances. So right now there's a threat, actually it's not even a threat yet, maybe it is a threat of b5. Well, I'm saying it might not be a threat because black still has to move knight c5. But in any case, here he played not the best move. He played b6. He should take on b4 or play knight b2 first. After knight b2 I want to play bishop d4. And here I thought I'm just maybe winning material. Well, actually, no, I mean in any case he is still bishop a4, but after knight d3, I think here I'm winning material because the knight is running out of squares. Yeah, but he can actually sacrifice the knight by playing a takes b4 here, bishop takes b2, rook d3, and giving one check and taking on a3. And I don't know how to evaluate this position. Black seems to have good compensation here for the piece. Okay, and also instead of knight b2 you could also take on b4 first, and here should take on a4, which I probably would not have done because I don't like to give up my bishop like that, but objectively speaking that would be the best choice here, and this is once again around equal. If I take back, now he's going to play knight b2. And now obviously bishop d4 doesn't work because there's knight d3 check and knight takes b4, so b5 is forced, and now bishop e4. And it looks kind of funny for black to go for this, but it turns out that here to bishop f5 everything is protected for black. g4 doesn't work because just take and take on e2. And well, he can go with the knight to c5, and he's enjoying quite a pleasant position here and he's better. Alright, let's return to the game. He played b6. So b5 is no good because of knight c5, attacking a bishop on b3. If I take on c5, he takes back with check. So that's not a good idea. But I spotted this variation which I quite liked. I played it knight d4, attacking a bishop, bishop retreats, bishop e8, and now knight b5, and now threatening, of course, to take on a4. So he takes the knight off, and he goes to c3. Yeah, he shouldn't go to b2, because once again the knight is running out of squares on d3. Rook d1 is coming, and it seems black has to go to great lengths to remain, to not lose this knight. So like g5 here, but in the end white is clearly better. So he played knight c3. Now I take on a5. He took back. If he takes on b5, I think. What What do I want to do here? I don't remember, but I could take a b6, but I think I want to play something like bishop a4, probably bishop c4 I want to play. The point being that after knight d4, now I can play a6. And that looks quite good. Nice pawn on a6. Alright, but anyway, he took on a5 and I played a4. And I was quite happy with my position. Well, not that happy actually, because I realized that he can establish quite a strong, I don't know, piece coordination here on bishop b4, knight c3. But still, after bishop pair, his pawn structure is slightly weaker. So overall, I'm doing fine here and I'm slightly better. Okay, first of all, I play king f3 to get out of any knight e4 checks, stuff like that. He played h5, which I expected to make it more difficult for me to do something on the king side. And I played rook c1. Actually, I think I want to play rook c2, rook d2 now to exchange excuse me, to exchange rooks on the d file. But he prevented by playing bishop rook d3. Now there's some threat of, I don't know, bishop c5. So I have to deal with that and kick the rook out of d3. But now obviously I cannot play rook c2 anymore because my bishop is there. So I had to come up with something else, and I decided to advance on the king side by playing h3 followed by g4. And here he made a mistake. He played rook d5. I mean, it is a difficult decision. Also maybe a difficult position to play for black, because h4 is a move it's risky. Because after all, this pawn might just be lost. But it turns out here I have no way of winning this pawn without allowing black too much chances. So for example, if I was to play bishop f2 here, plays bishop a3, and then he enters on d2, and it's just too much play for black. White is not worse, but it's just too much play here, knight e4. And this should be again equal, pretty much. So he should have played h4 when it seems there's no way for me to make sensible progress. That being said, that means possibly I should have started my advance here by playing g3. And then slowly h3, g4, and so on. So, mistake on my part. But he missed that. He played rook d5, and now of course I go g4. Takes, king g7, and here was also a little bit too quick, maybe. I played f5, looked good, but I could have prepared it, make it even stronger by playing bishop e4. Okay, if he takes on e4, this is just not great with the weakness on c7, so really good chance for me here. And if he doesn't take but plays rook d8, now I play f5. And yeah, possible variation here, computer suggests is rook ha, but if you have to allow the pawn to f6, you already know that white is in a really good spot here. And a possible line is king f8, bishop d4, and yeah, this should be really good. For example, I looked at the move g5 to not let the king come in, but here white can play a really nice move, king g2, and this rook's just dead. It's just dead. No way to come back into a game, and it's just game over. Yeah, knight takes e4, rook takes c7, threatening mate, and then this one's just gonna run, and there's nothing stopping him. I hope. No. King h7. Just b7, rook b8, and can collect this pawn maybe, and then bishop a7. That's it. Alright, but I played f5 too quickly, and even though I'm still better, it's not that clear. Takes, so no f6 for me, unfortunately. But now my bishops are coming alive, obviously, and creating threats against the black king. He has to be very careful. And he was careful. He found king f8. He was low on time though. He only had at this point, I don't know, 5 seconds left. But he only had one more move to make, so... well... wasn't too bad, and my next move made it kind of obvious. But I had nothing better. So I played bishop h6 and king e8. Important to go to e8 so he doesn't give me another tempo. If he goes to e7, then of course I would play bishop g5 and put my bishop on f6 or even do something else. So king e8 makes sense, and now bishop g7. And I have very strong threats here of rook h1, rook ha, but unfortunately he has exactly one defense, which is rook d1, and exchanging the rooks, because rook c2 there would be rook f1, and that just doesn't help. So I had to go into this endgame, but I still thought I have chance, even though only 3 pawns are left on both sides. It's the bishop pair, and the bishop pair can always create something, and in fact, I'm not sure. I really don't know how to evaluate this position. My feeling would be it's a draw, but practically speaking, white definitely is in a driving seat and can try for so long, really. Just move around, try on the king side, try on the queen side, and really difficult to play for black. So I just, okay, I thought, let's just keep trying. Knight b2, if he goes to c3, already this knight kind of running out of squares to go. He would need to play knight b1 here, but okay, that's just not that great. Even then, I played something like bishop d5, and this knight is just kind of dominated. So he found knight b2, and here maybe well, not maybe, I picked the wrong plan, I believe. I played king f4, instead just king e4, knight c4, king d4, knight b6, and now get the bishop out of here. Bring the bishop to better squares, and like I said, white can play for a long time. I'm not sure if this is winning, but you can try, and really difficult to defend, especially if you don't have a half-a-minute increment, as we didn't have it. There was only a 5-second delay in the tournament, and that means the longer you play, the lower your opponent's going to get on time, and that was also kind of what I was playing for. Okay, I play king f4, knight c4, bishop b3, knight b6, and king f5. I thought maybe somehow get my king around here, but it's just dreaming. It's not going to happen. And here I play bishop f8. If I take the bishops off, there's really not much to play for. So bishop h8, bishop e7, and that's actually why I said I should get my bishop out of this g7 square early, because now it's more difficult to get him out. Because, well, whenever I play bishop g7, bishop f6, he can counter with bishop f8 or bishop e7. Okay, so I said, well, let's keep my bishop on h8 for now and play king e4, and let's see what's going on here. And now here king f8 might have been a really good choice. Point being that I cannot get my bishop out, bishop f6, bishop e7, and he's not going to take on f6, but then the question is, what am I going to do, right? So that would have been the right way for him to go. Maybe bishop takes c5 is possible, and king c5, bishop takes e7, king c5. I don't know. This looks like it's possible, so maybe even here there's some chances. Probably knight d7, king c6, king d8 is the problem though. Yeah, that looks like a problem. So this would probably end in a draw. Alright, but he played bishop f8, now I play bishop f6. I guess even here he could still play bishop e7. Ah no, the difference is that now I can play bishop g7 if he plays bishop f8. Now I think here he would be too slow, because now I go king c5 and now I'm too quick. Yeah, that's probably the difference. But he played just bishop a3 back, and I almost instantly played bishop h4, completely missing bishop b2, but well, oh well. I knew there's some chance going on here anyway with bishop e1, and works out pretty well. So I gave up my pawn on e5, and here probably he shouldn't take it. I feel like it's probably lost if he takes it already. Probably king d7 is the best try. Now bishop g3, bishop c3, and once again, I'm very close to breaking through, but not quite there yet, and I still have to try, and might be still draw, not sure. Okay, but he took on e5, and now I think importantly I didn't play bishop e1 right away. I played king c6 first, putting my king in a better spot, and he has no way to stop bishop e1 anyway, and so that helps, because if I play bishop e1 here, he can play king d7. He doesn't allow me to get to c6, right? So king c6, he played f5, bishop e1, king d8, bishop takes a5, and this a pawn is just so strong, and I think position is lost at this point. King c8, these endgames are also lost for him. Yeah. I just run forward with my pawns, and this bishop is just gonna control this pawn, so no problem. So this is also over. So he played knight c8, and here I played bishop b4. Bishop e1 would have been much simpler. For one, already stopping this pawn, taking control of f2 square, as well as bishop h4 check is in the position, so that would have been better. But well, bishop b4 doesn't throw anything away, but my next move does. After f4, I played bishop c5. I thought it was such a smart move to restrict the knight on c8 completely, take control of the f2 square, but completely missed. There's a move like bishop c3 now stopping my pawn, and there's really not an easy way now suddenly to get my pawn advancing again. So yeah, huge blunder by me. Fortunately though, he didn't play it, he didn't find it. Instead he played with 1 second on the clock. Yeah, 1 second on the clock he played losing move right away. So even if he had found it, it would have been still hard for him to defend this. I think it's a draw, but still this is not the position you want to play with like 5 seconds on the clock or something like that, right? Because remember, you don't gain any time with the delay mode, you just get 5 seconds delay after each move that is played by your opponent. But it seems to me this is a draw. Okay, you played bishop d6, and now it's simple. I just take on d6 and follow with b6, and here he flagged, but there was no salvation anyway. Yeah, obviously if he takes, I take the knight. I have the right colored pawn, if I could say so, the right square, or the right bishop rather. And if he doesn't take, well, what can he do? King c8. I just take on c7 and checkmate. Next move on e6. Yeah, so there's really nothing he can do. f3, b7, just, and bishop c4, and well, that's it. Alright, so I beat Akobian, who's quite a strong player, 2635, and I haven't beaten a 2600 guy quite a long time. Not even sure when the last time was. Last year in the US Masters. If you want to check out my games against Cherubuk and Azarov. But in any case, I was quite happy about my win here. Not the greatest game ever, honestly. Equal endgame, and then he made some inaccuracies, and then this really shows how strong the bishop pair can be. And even if only 3 pawns are left on the board, you can still create a chance and still make the task difficult for your opponent. So bishop pair can really be a valuable asset, and if you get such an endgame, you can always try and play on and get your chances. Alright, so that was round 8. In round 9, I lost with the black piece against Evgeny Bareev, a very strong grandmaster, but the loss was completely unnecessary. So I finished the tournament on 6 out of 9, which was a decent result. I won some elo points, not much, but overall a decent result. The tournament in itself was crazy. Was held at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas, Millionaire Chess. If you haven't done so, check out the webpage. It's pretty cool. I think it's a great thing that they're supporting and promoting chess and making it visible around the world with such a huge prize fund and the whole coverage and so on. That really helps, obviously, the chess world. Alright, I'm still recovering from the tournament. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis, and if you haven't yet, I also posted an analysis of round number 7 where I played against Grandmaster Alonso Sabata, so you can also check this out somewhere up there. I'll put up an annotation. Thanks for watching and see you guys soon. Bye.